Will Starfield be capped at 30 FPS? Well, at this point, we don't know, but we do have commentary and a quotation from Todd Howard that started this debate already. We still do not know what the performance of this game will be. All we really have to go on is the trailer that was released, the footage that we've already seen and combed over many, many times. Many people from this trailer, as well as the Todd Howard quote, being concerned that the game will not feature a 60 FPS mode. I, for one, have continued to engage in this debate with people, and I want to actually push back on so many of the things I'm hearing about why 30 FPS is okay and why it really doesn't matter. Before I really push back on a lot of those notions and a lot of those really, I think, terrible points that people make when they preemptively defend 30 FPS, just listen to the quote from Todd Howard that has been circulated in the wake of the Starfield gameplay trailer. He said, quote, "We don't have a problem with 30 frames per second as long as it looks really good and the simulation is running and all that stuff." So basically, as long as it looks really good, we don't care if you get 30 frames per second. Well, I, for one, haven't seen anything in the gameplay footage up to this point that would limit that. Now, again, I'm not the expert. I don't use Creation Engine. I'm not a developer, but I haven't seen anything performance-wise from these trailers that would make it to where you couldn't give us a performance mode, whether you're going to limit the draw distance, whether you're going to turn off certain settings, lower the resolution, whatever. I haven't seen anything from them in their lengthy gameplay reveal that tells me this isn't possible. Now, Starfield's not really out yet, and people are already defending it if this ends up being the case. They're like, it's okay if there's no 60 FPS mode, okay? I want to just give a very, very brief recap on what happened with Gotham Knights. If you remember, Gotham Knights basically kept it a secret that there would be no 60 FPS performance mode, and they slowly let it out very quietly through their Discord, only because a member of the Reforge Gaming community was actually in their Discord and asked the question, and they were timed out and had their question deleted. So they were basically on guard for the question and took it away and tried to hide it. And very quickly, fans of Gotham Knights tried to spin that story and claim that, oh, well, here's a video from a content creator that said they were playing the game at 30 FPS ray tracing. Well, that's a common mode in PlayStation 5 games right now. The guy that made that video was just basically betraying his own ignorance. He apparently hadn't played a single PS5 game yet because, yeah, 30 FPS ray tracing mode's kind of a standard. So is 60 FPS performance mode, the ability to actually get 60 frames per second. And another recap that's needed, okay, so you had Gotham Knights. They got taken to task for that. The phrase 60 FPS was trending on Twitter. Everybody was very upset. And then you have to consider the console marketing. They marketed the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 as capable of hitting 120 frames per second. And I keep getting told by people that we're asking too much of these consoles. We're being entitled by expecting 60 frames per second. They promised us 120 capable consoles, and I'm good with half of that. Why are you good with a fourth of that? Like, what is wrong with you? You were promised much better performance than 30 frames per second. Now, if you're okay with 30 frames per second because you're like, listen, I want the lighting to look amazing. I want the textures to look amazing. I want everything turned all the way up. I don't care if it's 30 frames per second. That's great. That's your prerogative. That's your choice. But I should be given the choice as well since I bought the consoles for that. I will argue right now and definitively for the rest of this generation of consoles, if you can't give me 60 FPS or a mode that lets me turn it on, your game is not next gen, because that is what we are promised. So many people continue to say, well, we got that last gen. Why is it such a big deal? Why is it such a big deal? It's almost as if they don't even hear what they're saying. They're justifying old-gen performance on a next-gen console by referencing the fact that we got it on old-gen. It's just a complete lack of self-awareness. Imagine buying a Blu-ray player and getting Blu-ray upgrades on some of your most favorite movies and finding out that they don't look any better. And then somebody says, well, we got this resolution and visual fidelity from DVDs. You would say, yeah, the whole reason I upgraded was for increased performance. I wanted the cool new stuff. I wanted my nice shiny new TV to do all of the fancy things. So anybody defending 30 FPS by pointing to old-gen performance isn't even aware of the conversation they're having. They're like delusional and just defending it because that's the only thing some people can do. They have to defend games even before they're out, apparently. Now, there's people who say they don't notice. I don't notice it. It's not that big of a deal. That's great if you don't notice. What about the rest of us that do? What about the rest of us who have invested in very nice monitors or really nice televisions and were really excited to have a console that promoted 120 frames per second? That's something that we're well within our right to expect as consumers in 2023, especially after we were promised significantly more. And then when you say, well, nobody cares, nobody actually cares about this. Yes, they do. You're not paying attention if you don't think anybody cares about this. Epic squeezed 60 FPS out of Fortnite on old-gen consoles because they wanted a standard performance standard for anybody who played it. I guarantee you all the people who have played Fortnite at 60 FPS, they will start to notice when they're suddenly playing a game that is at 30. It looks like a slideshow. It looks muddy. All your beautiful shiny graphics look really muddled and not very crisp and clean. It's why when you watch these trailers, they move really slow. They don't move like a person who's actually going to play the video game. They move like a geriatric who took a beta blocker and has very low pulse. They're moving extremely slow. They're not moving quickly. They're not moving through the world in an organic and realistic way. Nobody moves through video games like this, like never ADSing their weapon and slowly panning. They're doing that to give you that very crisp, clean showing of all the shiny graphics and lights and shading. Many people say, well, you're expecting too much from a $500 machine. No, we're not. We're expecting what was promised to us. If you bought a car that promised a certain miles per gallon and you got less than half of what they promised and then got angry at anybody who expected better performance, you're a sucker. Like, if you buy something on a promise and you don't even get half of what was promised, you get a fourth of what was promised, and you defend that and you think that's okay, then you're a sucker. You literally paid for something on a promise, didn't get it, and then you have the gall to defend it as if, I don't know, are you an employee or a salesperson? I don't really get it. Stop accepting mediocrity and making excuses for poorly optimized games. Quit it. When the Gotham Knights situation happened, there were people that were so quick to draw the conclusion that, well, these consoles just aren't as strong as we thought they were. No, you just don't own a PS5, or if you do, you haven't bought any games for it. I haven't played a game yet on PS5 that's new that doesn't give me the next-gen performance that I was promised. These things are capable of 60 FPS. They're capable of 60 FPS in big environments like this, with this level of lighting and draw distance and detail. I've not seen anything in Starfield that says, oh my gosh, there's no way we're going to get 60 FPS. The only people who say this are people that are coping and trying to defend poor performance and poorly optimized games. Games like Gotham Knights and Plague Tale Requiem do not deserve your defense. They were poorly optimized. They ran terrible everywhere. That is not something you should be defending. Don't create a false narrative that, well, poor Starfield just couldn't quite get 60 FPS out of the Series X, which will be an amazing narrative to see people spin after they've claimed that, well, the Series S has more 120 FPS games than the PS5. Well, what are you going to say when your flagship title can't get past 30? Are you really going to defend it? You're going to create a new narrative that, well, these consoles just aren't strong enough. After you've spent months telling us that the Series X is stronger than the PS5 or that the Series S has more 120 FPS games than any other console. It's not even about a console war. But the point is, many people up to now have defended the Series X and the Series S as extremely strong consoles. You can't turn around and look at a game like this with what I would argue to be good graphics. Nothing spectacular. The graphics are good. I think the game looks nice. I'm looking forward to playing it. But you can't show me or point to anything in these games that means you can't give me 60. I've had people say, oh, well, there's so many planets. Okay, that has nothing to do with render distances, draw distances, texture mapping, resolution. It has nothing to do with the performance of the areas that you're in. Some planet off in some other universe, some other solar system has nothing to do with the current location that you're in and the performance that you get. That's not how video games work. Plenty of games are enormous and give you 60 FPS where you are. Do you think when I'm running around in Horizon Forbidden West that it's rendering monster robots and people and characters and worlds all over the place? No, there's a limitation to the render distance. That's like how these games work. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't be able to function. They would crash as soon as you started doing anything. It wouldn't even load. That's just not how you create areas like this. That just isn't how it works. People just don't understand the technology, even base level understanding of how games work and how they render certain areas within front of you. They don't render certain things that you can't see. They don't render things that are outside of your visibility. I mean, sometimes you see goofy things happening in game where you can zoom in really far with a sniper rifle and you can see the characters moving, but their animations aren't being rendered. It's kind of funny, but that's a great example of just how games manage to do that. These consoles are capable of 60 FPS. Stop defending a game that's not out yet. It's not worthy of your allegiance until it's earned it. It hasn't earned it yet. You haven't played it. You don't know if it's good, fun, satisfying, or enjoyable. You don't know if the content loop is awesome. You don't know if it's a good, enjoying trajectory of exploration or if there's good replay value. You don't know if these areas are going to be fun and full of great experiences and conversations. I actually happen to think the game is going to be a very good space RPG, but I haven't played it yet. So if somebody started saying that they were concerned about the quest system and the faction system, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's going to be amazing, because we know very little about it. And defending a game before it's out and saying, oh, it's totally fine if it's 30 FPS, it's totally fine if we get 1/4 of the performance that we were promised on these consoles. No, it's not. Stop being a sucker. Stop giving allegiance to something and defending something and creating false narratives about games. We should demand better from these consoles because we were promised better, period. I hope you enjoyed this video. Look forward to your comments below. I'd love to see all the people trot out the things I said in the video, that it's not that big of a deal, nobody cares, right? We shouldn't expect this from these $500 boxes. Nobody will notice. We're just asking for too much. We're just being entitled. I look forward to anybody who decides to leave those cliche comments below. It's why I address them in the video. As always, if you enjoyed this video, you might like my live streams as well, so make sure and hit subscribe and the bell button so I can see you in the next video.